Hey, did you know that prenuptial and postnuptial agreements can be your strongest shield in a divorce if they're properly enforced? So let's talk about how to make them ironclad. When Sarah came to me, she wasn't worried about whether her postnuptial agreement was valid. She knew it was. Sarah and her husband David had drafted it together with full transparency several years into their marriage, and they laid out exactly how their assets would be divided if their marriage didn't work out. And sure enough, 6 years later, they finally decided to part ways. The decision, fortunately, was amicable, but now, as their divorce proceedings began, David was contesting every aspect of the postnuptial agreement, really giving her a hard time. And Sarah felt overwhelmed and unsure about how to defend the agreement that they had both signed. That's where my family law firm stepped in. You see, prenuptial and postnuptial agreements are incredibly valuable tools, especially for high-income earning professionals and individuals with significant assets. What they do is they provide clarity on how the financial affairs of the couple will be handled in the event of a divorce, and they protect your hard-earned wealth, and they also minimize conflict during what can otherwise be a really messy process, and they actually lower attorney fees. But to make sure that these agreements work for you, they must be enforceable, and that's where things can get tricky. So how do you ensure that your prenup or postnup will hold up in court? Well, first, let's talk about fairness and full disclosure. So both parties must enter into the agreement willingly without pressure or coercion. More importantly, all assets and liabilities and income of the couple and the individual parties, they need to be disclosed up front. Now, if one party withholds critical financial information, well, then a court actually can invalidate the entire agreement. So in Sarah's case, her husband tried to argue that he hadn't understood the full scope of her finances when they signed the agreement. But because we ensured that every detail was carefully documented during the drafting process of the postnuptial agreement, and also because we had documented that we had encouraged him to seek legal counsel to review the postnuptial agreement, that claim didn't stand a chance. So a prenuptial agreement should be signed well in advance of the wedding, not on the eve of saying I do. You've all heard about those stories at the last second signing the prenup. Those can be invalidated under certain circumstances, but getting it signed well in advance allows both parties ample time to review and consult their own attorneys and negotiate if necessary. Now, for postnuptial agreements, timing is about addressing changes in circumstances. So whether it's the birth of a child, a major career shift, or a major inheritance, these agreements should reflect current realities in order to remain valid. Another key factor is the language and the terms of the agreement, whether it's a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement. Overly one-sided provisions or terms that violate public policy and would shock the conscience of the reasonable and ordinary member of society, that's the legal standard, that can render the agreement unenforceable. For example, if an agreement eliminates spousal support in a way that leaves one spouse financially destitute, then a judge may throw it out. That's why having an experienced attorney draft or review the agreement is essential. We understand the ins and the outs, the ups and downs of what courts will and will not uphold. We also know how to protect you against a claim that the other party didn't understand what they were actually signing. Finally, enforceability comes down to proper execution. So both parties must sign the agreement voluntarily, in writing, ink signatures, not e-signing, and in the presence of witnesses and a notary. So in Sarah's case, her agreement followed every legal protocol, making it virtually bulletproof despite her husband's efforts to challenge it. Once we filed the divorce itself, we also filed a motion, which means a request of the courts. So in this case, the motion was a motion to enforce the terms of the postnuptial agreement. This is how we let the court know that the postnuptial agreement existed, because in Georgia, I'm not sure about other states, but in Georgia, the postnuptial and the prenuptial agreements, they do not get filed with the court when they're created. They only get filed with the court when they're needed during a divorce. So we had a hearing on the enforcement of the postnuptial agreement, and no surprise, we won the hearing. That then cleared the path for the divorce, and we went on to mediation to work out the details on a few items that weren't specifically covered in the postnuptial agreement, and there's always going to be some of those, such as dividing up some jointly acquired items like furniture and electronics, and even some kitchen items. Okay, so if you already have a prenuptial or a postnuptial agreement in place, don't just assume it's going to hold up if it's ever needed. It's a good idea to have it reviewed periodically, especially if your financial situation has changed. And if you're considering creating one, make sure you work with an attorney who specializes in these agreements and has done lots of them, so that you will know that they know how to avoid all the pitfalls. At the end of the day, prenuptial and postnuptial agreements are powerful tools to protect your future. They don't just prepare you for the worst. What they do is they give you peace of mind in your marriage. If you have questions about enforcing or drafting these agreements, prenups and postnups, go ahead and give us a call. We do these every day. Reach out. We're happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to click subscribe, like, follow, and turn on those alerts so that you'll get notified when we post our newest videos. Please share these videos and leave us comments and ask questions. Also, join our Facebook group at Georgia Divorce and Custody, and I'll see you again on the next video.